All right, so we got more information. We solved more. We solved more problems, but we still have more. So, this was all basically catching you up on what Billy has been up to before he met Agatha. And so we see that now we know how old Billy Kaplan is supposed to be. He's in present day 16 because bar mitzvahs usually happen when you're 13. So, and that was 3 years ago. So we see Billy Kaplan getting ready for his bar mitzvah. And then we see the actual bar mitzvah, and thankfully the religious part didn't last long. We see the party, and for some reason they had a fortune teller there, mainly Lilia. And now I understand that Agatha said that witches do not remember casting a sigil. That's why, witches don't generally like to cast sigils. So I can understand that she wouldn't remember that part, but she didn't remember Billy at all. I mean, she never looked and said, "Hey, I remember you from a bar mitzvah." Nothing. She had no memory of him whatsoever. I would have thought that she would have at least remembered that part, but anyway. So, somehow, the residents of Eastview figured out that the hex was coming down. So, because the hex was coming down, everybody needed to get home. That it wasn't safe. Personally, I would have thought, especially after what happened, that they probably were safer where they were. But anyway. So, the family is leaving, and there's a car crash, and it's not because of anything that the hex did. It was simply that they were watching it coming down, and because of that, they weren't paying attention to the road, because that's brilliant. And, here, my head is a little high. So, they get in a car crash, and Billy ends up dying. So, Billy Maximoff manages to end up in another person's body. Now, based on what we saw later, it's obvious he has no control over this. So it's not like he intended to stay alive by finding an empty vessel, as Agatha called it. And Billy wakes up and immediately says, "Tommy." So you know that that's going to be his reasoning for the Witch's Road, is to find Tommy. Which is odd that he's not interested in finding his parents, just finding Tommy. From the beginning. But they're twins, so there's that. I don't know if they were aware that they were creations of the hex, and that's why they disappeared. I'm not sure. At least in Billy's case. So they take him to the hospital, and now Billy, who, remember, Billy Maximoff is 10. So, he 10-year-old kid, not realizing he jumped into another body until he sees himself in the mirror. And there's these people who claim that they're his parents. And there was this accident, and they just chalked it off to the trauma causing him amnesia. And so he's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Plus, he's hearing voices. Which, I mean, he's a super powerful witch. He's, I think, even more powerful than his mother. So, he's starting to hear voices of his parents. And, so of course he's responding as if they're actually talking to him. So he's basically sounding schizophrenic at this point. And of course his parents are worried because he's responding to something that they never said out loud. So Billy starts down this road of learning about witches and witchcraft. Because I think he first wanted to find out about the hex. But he knows a lot about witchcraft. He knows about the type of witchcraft that was used to create the hex. He knew a lot. And we finally got to see Eddie. Last episode I was questioning, when are we going to meet Eddie? Now, do I think that the people who wrote this lacked imagination because, of course, the it couple for mutants and for the LGBT community is Billy and Teddy. They couldn't have come up with a different name for this boyfriend because you know that he is not Hoagland. So then the question becomes of what happens to him. And I'm worried that it's nothing good. Because we have a lot of bad things happening to people in this show. So, 3 years later, we see the events of what happened in the first episode. First, Billy and Eddie are canoodling, but Billy can hear the thoughts in his head. Basically Eddie wanting to profess his love for Billy. At least that's what I caught. And that freaks out Billy because remember, even though he's in the body of a 16-year-old at this point, he's 13 years old. So, yeah, that he probably is, trying to figure out how to navigate this world still, even though he's had 3 years to get some sort of balance. He's still a kid. So he convinces Eddie about, the strangeness with the hex, his car accident, that he's changed. So I don't know if he's actually starting to remember being Billy Kaplan, but at the same time still knowing he's Billy Maximoff. That is unclear. And so he convinces Eddie, he shows him all his research, and Eddie's like, wait, and you call me gullible? So, because it does sound crazy. So he goes to Westview to meet Agatha. Before he does that, like I said, he's doing research, and he has his little spell book, and he's playing The Witch's Road, the Lorna Wu version, which is why you never hear Patti LuPone singing lead in anything. She's always, her voice is background vocals. I was hoping during her trial that we would hear her sing, But listening to Lorna Woo's version of The Witch's Road, I realized why they can't do that. Because that is totally Patti LuPone's voice singing as Lorna Woo. So obviously people are going to, figure it out. The audience will realize that it's the same voice. So unless they are totally cool with having the same voice, I doubt we're going to hear her formally singing on the show. So, but back to Lorna. Speaking of Lorna, she was reading his palm and she saw his lifeline was broken in two, and she tried to ease his fears about what it could mean, even though you could see it on her face that she's like, well, crap. And that's when she created that sigil. Like I said, I figured she would at least have recognized him as the kid who's having a bar mitzvah, not even necessarily knowing his name, but she didn't recognize him at all. So he goes to Westview. First, he and Eddie meet with Ralph Boner, who is going under Ralph Bonerific. Because, Randall Bonerific, sorry. Which, that, what an alias. I mean, yeah, not very creative, are you? His hair is different. I don't know if that's Evan Peters' natural look or if he was wearing a wig. That I'm unsure about. I think he was. I think he's naturally. I don't know. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not sure. And so Ralph is explaining, basically giving a not even a Reader's Digest version of what happened in WandaVision. And he calls her WandaVision, which I found hilarious because she's Wanda Maximoff and Billy even supplied the name. And he's acting like he's this informant who, he has to be careful because the mob would be after him and they're going to kill him if he tells any information. And so he finds out that, Billy and Tommy have disappeared. He tells them about Agatha, and Wanda, and how Vision. How does he know that Vision's a robot? I mean, did he ever see Vision? Or maybe Agatha told him? Because Agatha obviously knew. So, then he drops off Eddie, instead of bringing him to his house. And it's great to see that his parents are totally cool with Eddie. They just treated it like it's the most normal thing in the world, which is great. And we don't know why he dropped off Eddie, but given his curtness with his parents, I'm going to say that he wanted to do research and find out all he could about Agatha Harkness. How he thought to look up the Salem witch trials, who knows? So he goes to Westview and he's trying to figure out how he's going to explain himself. Now, he understands that she's still under a spell. Ralph told them that she's under the same spell that Wanda used on the entire residence of Westview. And so he decides that he has to steal something of hers in order to create the release spell. So Agatha didn't figure out that he's Billy because of the spell, because he was able to break Wanda's spell, because that was in a spell book. So he tries to rob Agatha, and in doing so, he knocks over a lamp because, yeah, that's great. But he is able to take her pendant. And the way he tried to run away from her, I mean, he was being really sweet. He didn't want her to get hurt, which is funny because she's a freaking witch. I realize she doesn't know she's a witch at this point, but still. So we see him running away, and Agatha chasing after him, only to get hit by Sharon Davis. She takes him to the station, which is just her house, and she has this, I wouldn't even call it a Nerf gun. I'm not even sure what it was. And she's acting like she's a cop. And Billy's going along with it, even though part of him is like, yeah, I kind of see this. Yeah, this makes sense. But we never see Rio. And whenever she looks like she's looking at Rio through the mirror, she's looking at a painting. And so she goes through questioning just like she did in the first episode. And she shows him the pictures, and that's when she starts realizing what the hell. So then he quickly brings out his spell book and starts chanting the release spell. And it works, sort of. She arrests him. She puts him in the closet, and the line of the episode, actually the line of the series was, "But I don't want to go back in the closet." I just love that. Like I said, whoever created that line, that was awesome. So then we see her waking up, opening the door, and seeing Billy stuck there. And we hear him when she asks, "What is your name?" And the first time he says Willie Kaplan. And I'm like, okay, I realize the sigil is to protect Billy from the truth, from people finding out who he is. But the first time he said Billy Kaplan, nobody would look at that and think, oh, you're Wanda's kid. Nobody would think that, because there is such a person. I mean, maybe it was because Billy Kaplan died 3 years ago and that would be suspicious. I don't know. But the second time he said Billy Maximoff, which didn't matter because she still didn't hear it. And so he knows that he has a sigil. Now, I don't know if at this point he understands that it's preventing him from telling people who he is. So then we get to present day, and Agatha is clawing her way out of the mud. And we don't see Jen or Lilia doing such a thing. There are teases of the fact that Jen does indeed crawl out of the mud, just like Agatha did. So I'm going to guess that both she and Lilia do get out, because if nothing else, we've seen bits and pieces of Lilia's trial when she's Glenda, the Good Witch of the North. So obviously those two survive. And so Billy breaks the sigil. So he literally broke the sigil. And so yeah, I wonder how Lilia's going to react when she crawls out of the mud and realizes that she's the one who put the sigil on Billy and why she did it. So Agatha is taunting Billy and trying to figure out what could Billy Maximoff want with the road. And telling her that, yes, I know who you are because you and your mother are so alike. And Billy is trying to threaten her, but his power won't work, which Agatha finds hilarious. And so it's obvious Billy doesn't have full control over his powers still. So maybe that'll happen when, at the end of the road. Whether it's because he'll be reunited with Tommy, or because that's what the road is going to give him. We don't know if the road is supposed to give your heart's desire. But I wonder if the road truly gives what you consciously think your heart's desires, or if it's something subconscious. So we won't know until the end. And so Agatha figures out, now I don't know how she came to this conclusion. She figured out that Billy is searching for Tommy. Now, again, I don't know why he chose Tommy instead of his parents, but they're twins, so that might have something to do with it. And she pronounced it Tommy. And so Billy corrected her, and she's like, that's what I said. No, you didn't. So, he's like, oh, I don't need you anymore, and actually I don't think I ever did, and that's when he tried to use his powers. Didn't work. So, he has no choice but to go with Agatha. And Agatha even said it's against the rules to go into an empty vessel. But Billy, we now know, has no control of his powers, so I doubt that was his intent. I doubt he intended to take over the body of this recently deceased kid. And so it's going to be interesting to find out how he gets Tommy back, if he gets Tommy back. Or he might just get information about how he can find Tommy. So it ends with Agatha saying, last one is a nice person. And I'm pretty sure I heard Billy say, I'm not very nice. So, and then he starts walking after her, and I think he actually put his hood up. I think he put up his hoodie. So yeah, obviously next episode is going to pick up with Jen and Lilia crawling out of the mud. Because like I said, there have been scenes showing that is going to happen. Well, we see Jen crawling out of the mud, but we do see Lilia's trial. So obviously they both survive. Question is, where the hell is Rio? And what's going to happen with Alice? Because nobody buried her body. Just unlike Sharon Davis, nobody buried her body. And I don't know why. Because Billy was hella pissed because of Alice. You know, he was so angry that even though Lilia and Jen weren't thrilled that Agatha stole her powers, but they already were like, yeah, we're all here for power, so, you know, it's fine. Let's see, what else is there? And Billy, mentioned to Agatha that he never trusted her. So, So Billy is telling Agatha that basically I was using you this whole time. But Agatha seems to have, wised up to who Billy was very early. Now, whether that's true or she just is one of those people who can't be caught off guard, because she has shown, like with her mother in the trial and with Rio, or basically anybody who would make her feel vulnerable, she would put up a facade of strength. So, who knows? She might just be saying that she knew all along simply because that makes her seem more badass. But she did figure out that Billy's after Tommy, so she has that going for her. Let's see if I'm missing anything. Now that we've seen Eddie, I wonder if we're going to see him again. Because, again, the it couple with Billy is Teddy. It's Hoagland. So, I don't know if Eddie ends up dying. If they just end up breaking up because Billy truly comes into his power and it freaks Eddie out. Because Eddie is seriously dubious about magic existing. So, who knows? But, obviously at some point, obviously not in the show, but at some point in the MCU, Eddie is going to meet Hoagland. So, I believe I covered everything in this episode. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.